We're back south of the border for round 5 of the British GT Championship. The Croft circuit just outside of Darlington is very flat and, as you can see, very long. So it's a real chance for these massive GT cars to flex their muscles.
Rob Barth, you guys are really taking the challenge to Lister this year. I mean, they're defending champions, but right now, you know, you're doing a good job against them.
Yeah, we seem to have the performance advantage. I know Lister have done a lot of work on their engine over the winter, but the Speed 12's going better than it's ever gone before. Both Michael and I are trying very, very hard in the car. We're very consistent, got good, similar driving styles, and yeah, we're trying to take the challenge to the Salines now. We've out-qualified one this afternoon, but the Erdos McKellar car is still proving elusive.
Mike Jordan, the Salines are going so well right now, but also the challenge is coming very strongly from TVR again, isn't it?
TVR have really picked their pace up, haven't they? They've sorted their chassis out a lot. It was always a very fast car last year. It had a lot of horsepower, but they've worked well and sorted their chassis out. And I think they've been able to go onto some softer Dunlops now, which we've changed our tyre compounds this weekend as well, just because our car's fairly easy on its tyres. So we're pushing the envelope a little bit with that. But now, as you say, the Salines are always there, aren't they? The disappointing one with the Saline is with Erdos and McKellar. Doesn't really surprise me being quickest, but getting out qualified by the other one with two relatively inexperienced guys in the car does show what pace that car's got.
Martin Short, Knockhill was significant. You managed to get those 12 points, keeps you in the lead of the championship, but what a great battle with Shane Lynch early on in the race.
Well, it was. Well, we decided to change the strategy with me going first because we thought there was a good chance that I'd be able to bully him into a mistake, and the plan came to fruition, and Shane drove really, really well, but my experience and his lack of experience did show. But I take my hat off to him. He drove superbly, and we had a nice little side-by-side dice into the chicane where I had to think, well, I'd better get out of this now because something nasty might happen, and Shane just collected a bump on the chicane and rotated beautifully in front of me.
When I spun, my problem was we were side by side, and I didn't know he had let off. And I couldn't actually see him in the mirrors, and I didn't want to squeeze in on him. So as I stayed wide, there's a little hole, and it just spat me out the other side, and I spun. I fought back to second place, handed it over to Ben. He had his own little battle. We brought it home in first position, and we were over the moon. Absolutely delighted. Unfortunately, it didn't stay that way, but you know, we keep our heads up and enjoy the rest of the season, really.
Well, overall, Saline have the lead of the championship, but Blinken, you'll miss it. It's only a point. Kane and Barth, I tell you, are fully committed this weekend. They want victory. 11 points, though, cover the top 4 in the GTO battle, so there is nothing in it at the halfway point in the championship. As we look at the cars on what is a very, very greasy track, we can see that the Saline is on pole position. Kane and Barth second on the grid, the second of the Salines. Now that is Tom Herridge making his debut in that car, but we have controversy. I'm joined by Will Hoy here today, and Will, we see no Lister because it has spun on the warming up lap. We'll come to that in a moment. We are just about to go to the green flag. The Saline is leading off pole position. TVR is going to take advantage, or are they, of the fact that that Lister has spun. Dave Warnock is right away at the back of the field. We may just be able to see him. No, we don't if we go on board with Simon Pullen. Now I'll point out to you that and that is David Jones up the inside of Simon Pullen extremely aggressively. Now I know that David Jones and Godfrey Jones, Steve O'Rourke has a spin. Looks like he had some contact there. Oh yeah, and some very serious contact with Shane Lynch's Tuscan. It's all happening on the opening lap here. The Lister has spun the 55, Tuscan has spun. I'm joined again, as I was going to say, by Will Hoy. Will, very, very tricky conditions. They were changing tires on the grid. What happened to that Lister, do you reckon?
Well, tyres extremely cold, and that's the first corner. Hawthorne, just very easy to get on the power too soon there. We saw a couple of spins there exactly for that reason. Cold tyres, a lot of power over those rear wheels. Just get on the power too quickly. Need a very light touch. Get on too quickly, and the back will just come round on you.
Yeah, I tell you what, these things are so difficult. The drivers are talking about how challenging these heavy, fast cars are in dry conditions, let alone when it is as slippery as it seems to be here. Now, this is an interesting point here. Talk about a leveler. We can see the 77 Porsche there was challenging the actual number 8 Saline. There we see that in the background. David Jones and Godfrey Jones were praying for wet weather. They love the wet weather driving. Their Porsche is suited to that, so right now it's kind of just that changeable kind of situation, and we can see tucked right in behind Nathan Kinch, who is very inexperienced, it must be said, but he's got one of the fastest race cars underneath him right now, and he's struggling to stay ahead of that Eurotech Porsche. But right now, the leader of this race is Tommy Erdos. He is just tippy-toeing his way around here. He's got the TVR, Rob Barth, doing a great job, chucked right up behind him here. And look at this, David Jones in that GTO Porsche has gone by the GT Celine, the number 8 Celine there of Nathan Kinch, and that is a great move. Okay, so we've got the number 77 car ahead of the number 8 GT car. So very tricky conditions here, and now we're on board with the 55 car Simon Pullen here, Will Hoyt.
Yeah, as we go through the first corner here on the first lap, you can see the track there dry but very damp on the outside. He lets the car just run a bit wide, gets on the damp stuff, gets on the power a bit too quickly, and around the back comes. And I think we're going to see now, on board here with Steve O'Rourke, exactly the same thing. He went down very tight on the inside into Hawthorne's there, had too tight a line, got on the power again too early, spun round, and it's collected there, unfortunately, by Shane Lynch, and caused a fair bit of damage to the Porsche, I think.
Yeah, it sure did. I think we could see that Porsche has had the front end of it completely ripped off. It's still managing to go around. Right now, the Rob Barf is challenging. Again, I said, Will, these guys were so committed this weekend. Rob Barf and Michael Caine want to take the battle to Lister, want to take the battle to Celine. Well, right now, Lister haven't done a good job by spinning on the opening lap, but he is doing a good job right now in this TVR to keep tucked in behind. What it must be said right now is a superior car, Will Hoy, in almost any conditions in GT.
Well, they've certainly got a power advantage and a well-sorted chassis. But in these sort of conditions, it's a shame in a way that it's not actually wetter, because that, as I say, is a great equaliser, and a well-driven car can really hang on to the shirt tails of a car like the Celine.
Oh, and that is, I think that must be Mike Newton, who's spinning in the 47 car. Looks like he comes away with no problems, and somebody with some problems, Steve Brady, and that is the 57. Yeah, that's the MK Porsche we saw before. Steve O'Rourke had the front end car taken off. I don't know if it was coming together with that 17, whether that's a Porsche bumper or just somebody else's bumper.
It's an Ultima Porsche, I think, with that
Ultima Porsche. Well, the number 7 leading car rounds the hairpin here, and we talk about well-handling cars and well-driven cars. This Lotus right here, Will, is doing a great job.
Yeah, nimble car there. Hasn't got the same sort of power as some of its competitors, but there, seeing diving down the inside. Perfect conditions for a car like this. And Robert Ross, look at that, hanging the tail out, exuberant driving style. And it's really great to see a car driven with such verve.
Yeah, Robert Ross and Matt Johnson make a good pairing. They haven't had much luck this year, it must be said, but right now, Robert Ross is really enjoying himself. Just right in behind him is John Hartshorn, tucked in. You can barely see the number 51 Tuscan there, and right behind him, making a comeback from his opening lap spin, is Simon Pullen, who is hunting down now the similar car of John Hartshorn, and not far behind him is the Ferrari, and this is the driver who's got a lot of catching up to do. Dave Warnock had the spin on the warming up lap. Now here it is Simon Pullen coming through the chicane. He's going to try and get a drag, is he? Yeah, and Robert Ross is going to give him no room whatsoever. Can Simon Pullen get through there? Oh, he thinks better of it. He's got championship on his mind, Will, but again, perhaps just a little bit too tricky offline there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. Down on the inside there, it's still damp, and you just definitely lose a bit of braking performance. So probably a good decision to back off that time. Probably needs a better run out of the chicane and have a go next time.
Well, Simon Pullen's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. He's just 19 years old, and he doesn't just want to win a corner or win a race. He's got the championship challenge of his whole team resting on his shoulders right now. So discretion, the better part of valor, as we see. No discretion at all from the Lotus here. They're not challenging for the championship. They're just going for outright wins. And look at this in GTO. Lotus, Tuscanar, Ferrari tucked right in behind it. Callum Lockie with that supreme sounding Lotus 360 GTO car. It really does make a beautiful sound. Shane Lynch just coming back from his earlier problems here, and he's got Simon Pullen tucked right in behind him. Callum Lockie wants to take advantage of this. And again, we see the Lotus normally a little bit slower, Will, but able to come off the corners fairly well. Oh! And that is the number 8, Celine of Nathan Kinch, who seems to have come out of that without any problems there, Will, but just, I don't know, some kind of, again, conditions, I think.
Yeah, straight lining the chicane there, getting rid of the tyre wall, but clearly just caught out by the damp track, and just seeing there the movable chicanes. Fortunately, they're movable because you can see there's no damage at all to that Celine. And here we are on board. He gets on the power here, and clearly just the car has a bit of a wobble, a bit of a tank slapper. He gets off the line onto the wet and slams sideways into that tyre wall. And the other tyre wall. That's a real 10 out of 10 for demolition there.
Yeah, I tell you what, he's lucky to come away with no damage. As you point out, those tires there are designed to stop drivers cutting the corners, but he's managed to smack into both of those and come away okay. But it is 700 horsepower, 1,100 kilo racing car, inexperienced driver. Sometimes that's what's going to happen. Look at this battle. Simon Pullen has got in front of him Shane Lynch. And he wants to get by that so that he can chase down that leading Lotus right there, get the most number of points. Great driving here, Will.
Yeah, great sequence of bends there. Here we saw Lockie there getting down the inside of Shane Lynch into Sunny Inn. But going back to Clark Curves and Barcroft, a really challenging sequence of bends, some of the best on any circuit in Britain.
Yeah, fantastic to watch those guys through there, and that was a good sequence. Again, good move by Lockie there, getting up in position, and good battle between those two Tuscans as we see the marshals working overtime, as usual, to get that chicane back so that we have a safe racetrack. And here we see Robert Ross again doing a good job in the Lotus. Simon Pullen is hunting him down, but right now tucked in behind him, he has got his championship challenger. The closest challenger to them in the championship is that Ferrari, and Callum Lockie and Jamie Davis have yet to get a win this year, and they desperately want one. A little bit more problem there for Steve O'Rourke. He came in the wars a little bit earlier on, and Callum Lockie just moving up the inside. Yes, he does. Gets up the inside of that Tuscan R. Great move by the Scotsman there. We saw an earlier move from him, and there we see another good one now. Simon Pullen is going to think, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I got to be leading this race. My team boss and co-driver, Martin Short, is going to be shouting at me a little bit here because that Ferrari has slid through. But again, long way to go in this race. Simon Pullen maybe just ease back now, think about what he needs to do, and just chuck right in behind that Ferrari. Right now, the Lotus is leading that Ferrari. Then it is the Ferrari there. Oh, and a bit of a wobble there from Callum Lockie. Simon Pullen back on terms with him. Remember, leading in GTO right now is that Jones Brothers Porsche, which is way out in the lead.
Very interesting actually looking at the cars coming out of the hairpin there, that the Ferrari definitely has got better traction than the TVR behind, yet the TVR is catching up down the straight, so they are maybe struggling with tyres or traction. There, Lockie gets down the inside of the Lotus driven by Robert Ross and squeezes by it, pushes Ross wide onto the grass. Still amazing amount of grip considering it's been wet. But it now gives the TVR a chance as he gets up right behind the Lotus as they swing through the Clark curves.
Yeah, this is fantastic stuff here. Look at Simon Pullen, that Lotus, through those quickest sections of the track here. Very, very tricky conditions. These guys are doing a fantastic job. We got some great racing, and join us after the break for more action here from Croft. Well, welcome back to Croft. Still leading this race is Ian McKellar and Tommy Erdos in their Selene. We're looking at the Lister now, which is trying to climb back from an earlier problem. That is the second of the two Selenes, the number 8 car. Mike Jordan is going to take over from Dave Warnock. And we are going to see that car climbing up through the field. We hope Simon Pullen here is getting onto terms now with Robert Ross in the Lotus. And is he going to slide through? Yes, he is. We were looking at a great driving from the Lotus earlier on. Is the Lotus going to come back on him? No, I don't think he is. Conditions now are drying a little bit, Will. We were seeing that Lotus was having a great run earlier on when perhaps the slippery conditions suited the fact that it doesn't have so much power. Now power comes into it a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, dry track, big cars, big power, it all helps.
Warnock's done a 22. He's done the quickest time he's done all weekend.
Well, Will Hoy, that's the team boss Lawrence Pierce there talking to Mike Jordan here in typically aggressive pose. Fastest time of the weekend by Dave Warnock. What does that tell us?
Well, the track's now dry. He's really trying to tell Mike Jordan that what sort of track conditions to expect when he gets out there in the Lister, and really now there's no excuse. Mike Jordan's really got to go for it.
Yeah, well, Dave Warnock does sometimes take a little while to get going. He said that himself. Now, this is Steve O'Rourke's car. Look ahead. That is Dave Warnock there on the warming up lap. This is what happened. Not a good way to start the challenge for Lister this weekend. They're clawing back through, Will, but a fundamental mistake, it must be said.
You said it, Rob. That was the warming up lap. You just do not make those sort of mistakes on the warming up lap because it's put him right to the back of the field, meaning that he's had a massively longer drive getting past all that traffic during the first part of the race.
Well, we can see here Ben McLaughlin taking over from Shane Lynch. Also a little bit of trouble for them at the start of the race. And they are making their normal pit stop right now. But it looks like, well, that this pit stop, oh, the front left wheel. Big problems for the Eclipse car here. Remember, these are the guys who had a win taken away from them at Knock Hill. Bad luck here.
And also, of course, this was the car I think that Steve O'Rourke clipped when he spun on the first lap. And clearly that has caused some damage to the left front wheel because they're having trouble getting the wheel off, so some sort of suspension damage.
Here we are, Dave Warnock coming in. Normally does the first 20 minutes of the race and hands over to Mike Jordan. The first pit box you can see here, super smooth, super efficient driver change as we come to expect from these guys. And Mike Jordan always has a bit of a job to do to win these races, as you would in such a competitive championship. Now this job is being made tougher by the problems on the opening lap. Simon Pullen chucked right in behind David Jones's Porsche. Again, this is the difference. The Porsche suited the wet track, the drying track. Simon Pullen, is he going to go around the outside? No, I'm a little ambitious on his behalf, but it looks like he's hunting him down, Will.
Good defensive driving there as he turned into Tower. Tricky corner as well because there's a big bump just as you jump on the brakes, but he did a good job hanging on there to the lead in the GTO class.
Number 8, Celine, coming into the pits here. Look at this is the J&M crew climbing all over that, and that is Steve Brady. Bad luck for him. Masters Motorsport Ultima GT car. He's driving that car on his own this weekend. Rob Barf coming in for pit service here. Number 27, TVR. On the right there is Michael Caine. Now look at the difference in the pit stop time here. Getting in and out of the car is so much more difficult in the Celine and the TVR. The Lister is so much more efficient, not necessarily in the way they do the pit stops, Will, but just the design of the car. And that makes a big difference out on track. They have to be that much faster in order to make up for the slow pit stops. Masters Motorsport Ultima there. Looks like the problem is terminal.
Yep, looks like they've elected a new pope there. But here we are on board with Michael Caine in the TVR as he closes down on the second of the Celines. Of course, that was the Celine that destroyed the chicane earlier, which we saw, and running with no damage. And I think we're going to see here Michael Caine going through on the inside, not of Barcroft, a dangerous place, but getting down the inside here into Sunny Inn as Herridge moves over. That's a very sensible move, bearing in mind he's a lap down.
Yeah, and coming in for the normal pit stop here is the 55 car. Martin Short takes over that car from Simon Pullen. Here we see that's the 47 car. Mike Newton comes out. Chris Marries is going to take over. And this is our race leader. Ian McKellar is going to jump into this car. Again, frustratingly slow. The TVR is going to take over the lead. We go on board with Tom Herridge. He's just been passed by Michael Caine. Boom, past the pits goes Michael Caine into the lead of this race, but there is a Celine that is going to be hunting him down. Hang on, let's take a look at this. Herridge is coming back on him, trying to unlap himself. Whoa! Well, that was a bit of an ambitious move for a car a lap down, and just managed to get in Michael Caine's way.
Yeah, I think it was a strange move, actually, but again, we saw the TVR struggling to get out of the hairpin, just losing some speed, and Michael Caine there, jumped on by Herridge. Herridge locks up, and here we see the bonnet here of the TVR, clearly damaged in that incident, but Herridge there locked up, and basically, poor old Caine had nowhere to go, hence the damage on the front, and that looks like it's going to be a pit stop.
Yeah, Michael Caine, they are going to be gutted. The TVR crew worked so hard. A fairly small crew that worked on this. It's a factory car, but the guys worked long, hard hours, and that is going to be, you know, it's just very, very unfortunate. The more damage there as we see that on the 69 car. Now, Ben McLaughlin behind the wheel of that now. Shane Lynch and Ben McLaughlin, a good driver pairing. And Ben McLaughlin really pushing hard in the Ferrari.
And there's the ubiquitous tank tape. You couldn't go motor racing without tank tape, and you can almost build a race car with it. There we are, seeing Michael Caine coming into the pits. They've got to patch that bodywork up. If they don't, they'd certainly get the black flag, from the clerk of the course.
Yeah, Dave Scott would, without question, bring them in. We go on board here, Will. Just see the Celine slide up the inside, and it looks like, did he overcook it going into the corner, or what's the situation?
Yeah, I think he just left his braking a bit late there, and clearly, perhaps if Michael Caine hadn't been there, he'd have been going straight on into the gravel.
Number 7 car, Ian McKellar, the open face helmet that we can see just inside of that cockpit, and there it is, the tank tape. It can only do so much of a good job flapping in the breeze here on the TVR, and just so unfortunate. Michael Caine and Rob Barf have had some troubles this weekend now.
But interesting though, how strong the Celine is. It's already destroyed 2 tyre walls. It's now hitting another car, and there's not a single bit of damage on it. Whereas the TVR, the front end has just fallen apart with that impact. So it does say something about the build quality of the Celine, certainly as a race car. And I mean, it was built for endurance racing, so if you build that sort of design parameter into the car, then it's certainly going to help in these sort of situations. So the TVR now has got more of a mountain to climb.
When Michael came in, the impact has popped the bonnet clips off, so we've had to tape the bonnet on. It doesn't appear to be any damage, it's just a pain in the ass, that's all. The car's running absolutely brilliantly, and we got fired off whilst passing a back marker, so it just doesn't need to happen.
Well, look at that. I tell you what, I don't feel very comfortable here in the commentary box, Will Hoy, because the clouds over this circuit right now, we're going to have a deluge any moment, and on slick tires with this kind of, whoa! The Jones Porsche, and it looks like Chris Marries in that 47 car. That was a high-speed incident.
Yeah, that was at Clark Curves. That's quite a scary place to go off. There is a lot of runoff on the outside, which Jones was able to use, but Chris Marries there stopping in the middle of the track. A scary place to be with cars bearing down on you. And there's Ian McKellar there, powering through out of Tower Corner. And here we see the replay again. That's very fast and scary. I think what happened there, it looks like Marries tried to get through the inside of the second part of Clark Curves. Jones comes across, chops him, and Jones flies off onto the outside, and Marries has that heart-stopping moment.
Yeah, he just gets going, and here, Martin Short. Again, he's so good in the second half of these races. He takes over a hot car from his young teammate Simon Pullen. He's always so good at bringing that car home. A little bit more difficult now for the TVRs. Oh, just a little bit of a wiggle there from Ian McKellar. Now he is almost a lap ahead of this TVR, but he just wants to add insult to injury and get by this car if he can. But the clouds are looming, tricky conditions here, Will.
Yeah, just look at the glistening on the track now. I know they've got the headlights on it, but it does look like the track's getting damp, so they've got to be ever so gentle on that throttle. There you see a twitch from the TVR. Exactly what I was saying. You can see the rain now. These guys are really going to have to tiptoe around this circuit.
I'll tell you what, Ian McKellar doesn't look like he's tiptoeing, but yet the conditions are changing here. Just take a look at this, and it is absolutely flooding it down now. So tricky for these guys to get around. And that is the number 8 car, the number 51 Tuscan, and they're all going to be just out tiptoeing around here, just barely able to get through.
Well, you got about 2 laps, I guess, on hot tyres to handle these conditions, and then they start dropping off in temperature, and it gets very slippery. And there's the red flag.
Yeah, so the race is over. Ian McKellar might not know it, though, because he's still tucked right in behind Michael Cain's TVR, but the red flags will be shown all the way around the track, and not a moment too soon. Dave Scott, the clerk of the course, calling a halt to this race. Martin Short just going to get over the line, and yes, he takes victory in GTO, but conditions absolutely not a moment too soon, because that is a very treacherous racetrack. Well, happy to see the checkered flag. Martin Short and his young teammate Simon Pullen, yet another good job. They had difficulties at Knockhill. They come back with a victory, and things are really hotting up in the GTO battle for the championship. Well, it was another very good day for the winning Celine, whilst Lister salvaged perhaps a lucky second place. TBR get third spot after their controversial coming together with the other Celine. Back on top after their Knockhill disappointment, the Roll Center 55 car wins in GTO. And the fight behind them in the GTO pack was stunning.
Over the weekend, we've been setting up the car towards soft. Because obviously when we got here on Thursday evening, the weather's been very on and off with the rain, and we had a feeling that it was going to be wet at some point during the race, so the whole work that we did over the weekend has been towards a soft setup, and obviously paid off today. The timing was perfect from their point, from the officials' point of view. I think Dave Scott did a great job stopping when he did. I think had he waited another lap, it could have been really the wrong decision. People would have been going off, obviously on slick tyres, so it was a real good decision from the officials.
I could see the cloud coming. I got onto the radar and they said if it was going to rain, they were going to stop the race. And you could see the lightning coming down, and it just come down. It's unbelievable. I've never seen rain like it, to be honest.
Well, McKellar and Erdos lead the points, but not by much. With 25 points for a win, their slender 6-point advantage could easily be lost. TVR are also only 1 win away from the top of the table.
My stint was very dry. It started off a bit damp, but then it got drier and drier. So, it was very tricky at the start on the cold tyres, but after we got in our groove, we were really flying.
We dropped the ball a little bit at Knockhill, but back on the conservative route, and Simon, as usual, is doing a magnificent job up front, and I'm bringing the car home, and it's working nicely. Thankfully, we seem to be getting a run of luck at the moment, and hopefully it's a championship run of luck, so we're just going to keep plugging away at it.
Well, in the GTO points, the Short Pullen combination make its triple figures. But watch out, the Lockie Davis Ferrari is very much on the move. Great entertainment from the Lotus again, but look out too from the McLaughlin Lynch Tuscan.
Victory came sooner than expected for Tommy Erdos and Ian McKellar, thanks to the weather. That's 3 straight wins for the Celine, and don't bet against them making it 4 next time out at Silverstone. Hopefully the weather will be a bit better.
The ASCAR Championship returns to Rockingham next, where the title holders are battling for the lead. More sport on 4 in a couple of minutes.